way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us. This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.
All right, in the news, Nigeria has banned white models in adverts, which I believe is advertising. The ban on foreign actors and voiceover artists is part of a push to foster homegrown talent for many years. Adverts that air in Nigeria have starred white actors and have been narrated by people with British accents. As of October, however, that looks set to change, as the country enforces a blanket ban on white and other non-Nigerian models and foreign voice-over artists. According to Nigeria's advertising regulator, the ban will cover all non-Nigerian actors, representing a sea change in national feelings toward representing the country's native population, which numbers more than 200 million. Taking effect on October 1st, the outright ban expands on an existing tariff, which requires advertisers to pay 100,000 naira, or around 200 pounds, for every foreign model in an advert. The hope is that it will also channel more creative projects into the country and help boost opportunities for homegrown talent. Already, the British agency AMV BBDO has shot an African campaign for Guinness. Black shines brightest in Lagos, with a Nigerian director and local models, reflecting the shift in the nation's advertising industry.
Isn't that divisive or xenophobic? Or that's only when Black Americans gatekeep our culture. But no, good for them. I mean, I ain't mad at it.
Hey, do what you gotta do.
All right. Millennials are the first generation to prove a college degree may not be worth it. and Gen Z may be next. In the 2010s, millennials became the new slasher villain as older generations blamed them for the death of everything, including but not limited to mayo and soap. But one thing that the millennials couldn't seem to put it into was the lack of economic opportunity as they entered the job market. Despite being the most educated generation to date, graduating college didn't put them in a better financial shape than older cohorts at their age. So finds a new working paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research that compares the financial prospects of millennial college class of 2013 to that of Gen X college class of 1996. By examining the unemployment rate and the number of those living with their parents at the time at graduation time. The unemployment rate for 2013 grads was 12% compared to 9% for 1996 grads. Of course, those millennials who were employed, 52%, worked jobs that didn't require a college degree, what NBER calls a mismatch rate. 7% more than those who graduated in 1996 did. These mismatched jobs typically pay less than matched jobs where total earnings are 12% higher than the 1996 grads and 34% higher than the 2013 grads. What's more, earnings for mismatched jobs fell by 8% for the class of 2013. That is to say, millennials working mismatched jobs were earning less than both the Gen Xers in the same position at their age and their own peers working jobs that required a degree. The value of a college degree has fallen. That millennials are more likely to be unemployed, live at home, and carry student debt than the previous generation suggests that a college degree isn't what it used to be. The findings echo previous St. Louis Fed research that found that while it's still worth attending college in terms of earnings, the payoffs are lower than they used to be for non-white students and younger generations. It's like, I was told that if I went to college, I'd be able to get a good job and support myself and family, and that's not always true in our current environment. A 34-year-old who's paid $100,000 in private loans told Fortune's Trey Williams. So millennials are having it tough after college, and while Gen Xers like myself may have had a little better, I mean, I really think that that's when the decline started happening, is when Gen X hit the job market.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I came out of college, I was, maybe even barely making minimum wage when I first came out. So yeah, it was pretty ridiculous.
Right, and it's only getting worse. And I really think that part of the problem is just like we see in the political climate. These older boomers are just not leaving the market, and they're not paying it forward, mentoring the next group to grow them into these management and career type positions. I mean, my old boss was on the job for 36 years and had no plans on going anywhere until they early retired her. So I just think that there's just, I don't know, not enough jobs out there in the market.
All right, so it looks like a black driver guilty of manslaughter for killing white girl in Georgia there's a stand your ground case right now in Georgia. A black man was on Wednesday found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but acquitted of the most serious charges in a murder case that left one white girl dead and effectively put Georgia's controversial stand your ground law on trial. A jury quickly decided William Mark Wilson's fate after beginning deliberations on Tuesday night following a trial that lasted less than 2 weeks in Bullock County Superior Court in Statesboro. Wilson, who is biracial, was also found not guilty of murder and aggravated assault. He is scheduled to be sentenced on September 20th, according to the Statesboro Herald. A 21-year-old Wilson was arrested more than 2 years ago for the fatal shooting at a truckload of belligerent racists trying to run him off the road. His lawyers maintained in the case. He was charged with 1 count of felony murder and 1 count of aggravated assault in the death of Haley Hutchison, a 17-year-old, inside the pursuing truck that defense lawyers said carried white people yelling racial slurs at Wilson and his girlfriend, who is white. Wilson, who is legally permitted to carry the weapon he used to defend himself, argued that he should never have been charged for what his lawyers described as an unfortunate consequence of self-defense on June 14, 2020. Wilson's case was reminiscent of last year's murder trial for Kyle Rittenhouse, a white teenager who also claimed he feared for his life when he used an illegally bought assault rifle that he illegally took across state lines to kill 2 people and critically injure a third at a Black Lives Matter rally in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a little more than 2 months after the state's borough shooting. Despite the clear similarities and differences, Wilson, for instance, was a licensed gun owner of legal age to conceal carry the weapon. A jury decided that Rittenhouse had done no wrong, while a separate jury in Georgia ruled in the opposite for Wilson, placing a bright spotlight on the racial disparities in Georgia's criminal justice system.
I hope that gets overturned on a appeal, because this is definitely a double standard. And I mean, if they have stand your ground laws, that's exactly what it sounds like he was doing, according to this article.
Yep.
It's because I'm a Black man. SMUD lawsuit claims hiring discrimination, workplace retaliation. Sacramento, California. 4 African-American employees are suing one of Northern California's largest energy companies, accusing the organization of discrimination and retaliation. The employees of the Sacramento Municipality Utility District, or SMUD, believe their race impacted their success with the company. It's unfortunate. It's traumatizing. There are countless nights with no sleep. SMUD Senior Procurement Specialist Amy Ayers told KCRA3. According to their lawsuit, Ayers was passed over for a supervisor position even though she was the most qualified and experienced candidate. She claims the decision was strictly based on her race. According to the lawsuit, following the second round of interviews, she was passed over and they promoted a white man. Quote, "They told me I wasn't the right fit," end quote, Ayers said. What does that mean? What didn't I fit? Because I have more than enough experience. So sounds like blatant discrimination to me. I mean, you know, and thinking about our reparations proposals out here in California, we really need to put our heads together on some of this workplace discrimination that just seems to keep happening, especially out here in Sacramento. I don't know, what could a proposal to prevent this type of discrimination be?
Well, I don't know, I think we've talked about it in the general public that even though when reparations does happen, racism will most likely continue to happen. So
I fear that it'll happen even at an increased rate.
That is a possibility as well. So, because you know, there's a lot of haters out there.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, so basically, in terms of the workforce, because we know that it's a hostile working environment currently, the only way to do that is really to have your own business, so you can prevent, or at least try to, as best you can, circumnavigate, you know, those issues within that own working environment instead of being in a hostile situation. So not saying that there wouldn't be some issues with a freedman ran industry or businesses or corporations, but at least you necessarily wouldn't have to be dealing with as much as overt racism or covert racism, and then on top of it dealing with, narcissists and favoritism and all that other stuff. So
Yeah, so that
nepotism, not narcissism. Nepotism. My fault.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but in this case, I mean, if you qualify apples and apples, if she has the most experience, I mean, does there need to just be some kind of blanket rule that, the person with the more experience gets the job? I don't know.
All right, so Black Americans see racism as a persistent challenge, and few say the country's racial reckoning has brought change. 2/3 of Black Americans say that recent increased focus on race and racial inequality in the United States has not led to changes that are improving the lives of Black people, according to a new report from the Pew Research Center. In finding marks a pessimistic turn in September of 2020, a majority of Black adults, 56%, felt the added attention to issues of race inequality following a summer of protests sparked by the murder of George Floyd would lead to changes that improve the lives of Black people. In the new survey, however, 65% of Black adults say that such changes haven't materialized. Just 13% see it as extremely or very likely that Black people in the United States will achieve equality, with little variation in that figure by age, gender, region, or education level. The survey, which included interviews with more than 3,000 Black Americans nationwide, conducted last fall, finds 82% consider racism a major problem in Black people in the United States. About 8 in 10 Black Americans report having personally experienced discrimination because of their race or ethnicity, at 79%, including 50% who say they experience such discrimination regularly. And roughly 7 in 10, 68%, say racial discrimination is the main reason why many Black people can't get ahead these days. Quote, overall, Black Americans are clear on what they think the problems are facing the country and how to remedy them. Write Kiana Cox and Khadija Edwards, the report's authors. However, they are skeptical that meaningful changes will take place in their lifetime. A broad majority, 85% of Black adults, say Black people in the United States today are significantly affected by the legacy of slavery, and 77% say descendants of people enslaved in the United States should be repaid in some way. But just 7% of Black adults see the payment of reparations as very or extremely likely in their own lifetimes. Among the overall U.S. adult population, just 30% favor such reparations. Racism ranks as the most pressing problem for Black people living in the United States out of 6 issues tested in the survey. Almost 2/3 of Black adults, 63%, say it is an extremely big problem for Black Americans, while 60% say the same of police brutality, 54% of economic inequality, 40% affordability of healthcare, 46% efforts to limit voting, and 40% the quality of K through 12 schools.
I mean, racism is it's a big problem for sure. But did they really even mention any solutions in this article? What the solution would be besides the support of reparations, which would definitely be a solution. All right, in more racist news, new racist text revealed Torrance cop talked about hurting and killing Black suspects. This is from the Los Angeles Times on August the 25th. The day after Torrance police shot Christopher DeAndre Mitchell in 2018, his mother and a dozen of his loved ones staged a protest outside the department's headquarters. At the same time, the group of officers, including the 2 who had killed Mitchell, were discussing the situation via text message. Quote, was going to tell you all those N-word family members are all pissed off in front of the station, end quote. One wrote, according to the court documents recently reviewed by the Times. Court records show that the officers later mused about what might happen once the identities of those who shot the 23-year-old became public. Quote, gun cleaning party at my house when they released my name, one asked. 8 months ago, a Los Angeles Times investigation revealed portions of racist and homophobic text messages exchanged by at least a dozen Torrance police officers, a scandal that sparked an investigation by the California Attorney General's office.
Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is surprised, but at least they are investigating it, and hopefully there'll be some real repercussions.
French activists fill golf holes with cement to protect watering exemptions during drought. Climate activists affiliated with Extinction Rebellion have targeted golf courses in southern France, filling holes with concrete in protest over exemptions from water restrictions during one of the worst droughts on record. France has told residents to avoid non-essential water using like car washing and watering gardens. However, activists complain that golf courses are allowed to continue watering greens. The protest action took place at the Ville Toulouse Club and also at the Garonne des Sept Derniers course, like my French. Anyway, defending their exemption from the water restrictions, Gerard Roger of the French Golf Federation told the France Info News website, "A golf course without a green is like an ice rink without ice." Water bans are enforced at the discretion of regional officials, and so far only Les Eaux-Villaines in western France had banned the watering of golf courses.
I mean, golf courses are a big water suck.
Huge water suck. Yeah, I mean, unless you're a professional like golfer, like, you know, they need to figure something else out. I mean, even if you put artificial turf there, I mean, and maybe then near the hole, maybe you put like, you know, real grass there, but like they need to figure that out.
Yeah, they got to figure something out. For one, it's golf is a game for the elite, so yeah, it's just excess. And if we're in a drought, you know, we got to do what we can to conserve.
Well, speaking of droughts, especially out here in the western part of the United States, as of July 11th, 2022, drought conditions were most severe in the United States of California, Texas, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, and New Mexico. According to USDM, on July 11th, 2022, more than 30% of land in western states was classified as experiencing extreme or exceptional drought. Data reported by USDM demonstrate the incidence of drought in the western United States during the summer of 2021 exceeded all past droughts in the region since 2000. Drought conditions in the western United States gradually subsided in the later months of 2021 and began intensifying again during the first half of 2022. So let's look at some information specifically regarding California and the produce here in California. California is the world's 5th largest supplier of food, cotton, fiber, and other agricultural commodities. In the United States, California is the largest producer of food, despite having less than 4% of the farms in the country. The state has a unique Mediterranean climate that allows it to grow a variety of over 450 plus different crops. Some of the crops, such as almonds, artichokes, figs, and raisins, are exclusive to California, and the state is the largest exporter of almonds in the world. In the United States, California is the #1 dairy state and is the 4th largest wine producer in the world. The state produces over 90% of the wine in the U.S. It is also the nation's leading producer of strawberries, averaging 1.4 billion pounds of strawberries. That's 83% of the country's total fresh and frozen strawberry production. Yep, so basically if California ever got in a serious water drought where couldn't even farm, I mean, the U.S. would be in trouble. So yeah, we definitely need to start thinking about some alternatives to this whole like golfing thing, because
Yeah, that's one that can
ridiculous.
certainly get cut off real quick.
Real
And then
quick.
looking at innovative technologies, there was a black guy who had created a mechanism that was able to extract air to turn into water. And I don't ever know what happened with that. I don't know if it's the fact that he was black, but that never seemed to make it to market. And I was like, this would be wonderful, but haven't seen it on the market yet. And it looks like there are water woes all around. Jackson, Mississippi has no water to drink or flush toilets. Let's see, 10,000 residents in Jackson, Mississippi have indefinitely lost acceptable and reliable running water after excessive rainfall and flooding. Rising floodwaters over the weekend breached the city's main water treatment facility, bringing it to the brink of collapse. A state of emergency has been declared, and schools, restaurants, and businesses have temporarily closed. The city had already been under a boil water notice for a month. Problems at the O.B. Curtis water plant began after heavy rains caused the Pearl River to crest and spill over into city streets over the weekend. City had confirmed on Monday that river water had entered the facility, which treats more than 50 million U.S. gallons, 190 million liters per day. Both the city and state are distributing bottled drinking water to residents, as well as non-potable water for toilets via tanker truck, with Mississippi's National Guard assisting in the relief efforts. On Tuesday afternoon, Jackson Mayor Chokwe Antor Lumumba said that very fragile city-run plant would not turn off its water supply, but officials need time to treat the water. He blamed the system's failure on staffing shortages and a set of accumulated problems based on deferred maintenance that had not taken place over decades. It was not a matter of our system would fail, but a matter of when, he said. The White House said it was closely monitoring the crisis and has been in regular contact with Mr. Lumumba.
I think it's Lumumba. I think. Well,
Mr.
hey, no, it might be
Lumumba.
Lumumba.
Whatever. This situation in Mississippi sounds horrific.
Yes, there are some dire straits out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been seeing posts. I mean, you'd have to go back and verify, but just people posting on social media saying that, it may have been mismanagement of some of the, COVID funds that were supposed to be used for crisis. They had like millions of dollars at one time, and they knew that this was going to happen. You think they would have made getting the maintenance done a priority when they had an extra windfall of funding.
Yeah. I mean, look, divine intervention is what it is. I mean, nature's gonna take its course. However, if it's something like Katrina, where the engineers and so forth were like, hey, heads up, we can do something about this. And in this case, it sounds like Jackson, Mississippi may be in the same predicament as it was with Katrina.
Yeah, it was not a matter of if our system would fail, but rather when.
Yeah. Kind of like reparations. Anyway.
Yeah, not if, but when.
All right, rap lyrics can't be used against artists, California lawmakers decide. A California bill that prevents prosecutors from using rap lyrics and other creative works during criminal proceedings could soon become law. Last week, California State Senate and Assembly both unanimously approved the bill. California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, is reportedly expected to sign the bill into law and has until September 30th to do so. The bill, AB 2799, states prosecutors cannot cite a defendant's creative works in court unless it can be proven that the evidence won't, quote, inject racial bias into the proceedings, end quote. The measure applies to any creative work, including novels, poetry, film, performance art, etc. However, words from hip-hop songs are specifically cited in the bill's text. In particular, a substantial body of research shows a significant risk of unfair prejudice when rap lyrics are introduced into evidence, the bill states.
I mean, I guess that's a good thing, definitely. But what about the rappers who have gone to jail based on biases from their lyrics? I mean, they definitely need to take a second look at those cases.
Good point.
All right, and here's another rapper in the news. JayZ finally acknowledges the criticism of being a billionaire. JayZ accomplished some extraordinary feats in his career. He summed up a good majority of it in last Friday with a release of DJ Khaled's God Did. The nearly 4-minute long verse finds Jay reflecting on his come up from the streets to becoming hip-hop's first billionaire and producing 2 others, 3 if you count LeBron. Unfortunately, not everyone finds Jay's wealth impressive. The rapper frequently finds himself facing backlash for accumulating an absurd amount of wealth throughout his career, and the criticism of being a capitalist often at the forefront of the dialogue. As Hove continued to do press for Khaled's album, he appeared on Twitter Spaces last night with the Miami DJ and other individuals where he discussed the verse, among other things. At one point, he redirected his attention to the online chatter about his wealth, slamming the term "eat the rich" and "capitalist." I believe we've got a video. Let's take a listen to what JayZ had to say in Twitter Spaces last night.
Yeah, we're not gonna stop. The hip hop is young. We still growing, and we're not falling for that technology, whatever this public puts out there now. That before was the American dream. Pull yourself out of bootstraps, and you can make it in America. All these lies that America told us our whole life. And then when we start getting it, they try to lock us out of it. They start inventing words like capitalist and things like that. I mean, we've been called monkeys and shit. I don't care. Those words y'all come up with, y'all got to come up with stronger words. When I say y'all, I'm not talking about you. The words they come up with, they got to come up with stronger words. We're not going to stop. We're not going to be tricked out of our position. Y'all locked us out. Y'all created a system that, doesn't include us. We said, fine. We went our alternate route. We created this music. We did our thing. We hustled. We fucking killed ourselves to get to this space. And now it's like, eat the rich and think, man, we're not stopping. So that evolution is, from us, we came from selling 7 records and selling records out our trunk and, no radio play. And I think Reasonable Doubt did 36,000 the first week or something like that. I may be adding a little to it, so. I come from Marcy Projects. My first house, 615 Lexington Avenue. My grandmother's house, 7 families lived. She has 7 kids. My mother and my parents and siblings lived in that house. My aunt Niecy lived in that house. Hootie lived in that house. Butchie lived in the basement. I mean, this is one house. I went back to that house. I did an interview with Oprah, and I couldn't believe how small this house was. That all of us lived in that house.
So what do you think? Is JayZ being villainized for his vast amounts of riches?
I guess. I mean, and that's the question that I probably have, especially for Black people who are wealthy, is like, and not just Black people, just in general, like, do we put too much pressure on our, quote unquote Black elites? Do other
That's your question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a question. I mean, do we put, or is it, another question would be, you know, do other ethnic groups just then contribute more to their, you know, ethnic groups, like once they become like whatever community, you know?
In a group economic sense, do they help the community? Yeah, and you know, I don't really have a question about it, but more of a statement. I think that his, you know, backlash that he receives is more due to his business ventures seem to be exploitative of the Black community. Like this, I think he was doing some Bitcoin training or something like that. I mean, I don't know, but it just seems exploitative. I think he even got into like some rent to own housing thing. Never ever heard of that. You never hear of the good that these projects do, but they're definitely targeted towards the Black community. But yeah, just never hear them again. And actually, TD Hip Hop, he had done a great breakdown about JayZ's contract with the NFL, which is more of an entertainment, you know, self-serving for JayZ, versus Ice Cube's contract with the NFL, which was more about job creation for the Black community. So I think that that's where he gets, like I said, a lot of the pushback is because his ventures seem to be exploitative of the Black community. Yeah. And
I mean,
self-serving for JayZ.
And I mean, look, if he was gonna be self-serving, I think it'd be more, it would have a better opportunity not only for him, but you know, the Black community, if he like went in and did real estate, like a real estate venture capital thing, but specifically in Black communities where, like, you know, Black people could invest in it with him. But like, I don't know, the way that he was doing it didn't seem very productive. You know, I mean, actually going into places like Baltimore, which, you know, Baltimore needs some serious help, like to build wealth in some of those Black businesses, and actually investing physically in there, like going to specific communities, Black communities that need to build wealth. I mean, I know he's the billionaire, it's his money. I mean, I'm sure there's many ways that he can invest his money back into the Black community, but yeah, I don't think anything has really been targeted yet specifically for, I mean, even where he's from in New York, you know, I don't know if anybody from New York is listening to this and can, you know, attest to see if he's actually invested specifically in the Black community, even locally from where he's from. You know, I don't know. I'm not in his pocketbooks like that, so.
Yeah, so, you know, poor JayZ being called a capitalist. Wah.
Well, speaking of wealthy, it looks like Tyrese is gonna have to be paying $10,000 a month in child support. He looks like he's ticked off a judge with this CFO crack comment that he made. Looks like the judge got superheated during some of Tyrese's testimony, particularly when Samantha's attorney, which I believe is Tyrese's soon-to-be ex-wife, attorney grilled him about his finances, and Tyrese tried to fire back at him. Samantha's lawyer pointed out Tyrese made more than $2 million in 2018, a year when he claimed to have been in financial ruin. Tyrese responded, "I don't do the CFO thing. Here's a question to you, smart person." He didn't get to finish his sentence because the judge cut him off and shouted, "You don't ask questions. That's not how this works." He threatened to hold Tyrese in contempt if he tried any more funny stuff. Tyrese is now officially single, and he will be heavily investing in his child's future. That's how the judge advised him to view the $10,000 he'll be paying monthly in child support going forward. Tyrese's courtroom showdown with his estranged wife, Samantha Lee Gibson, wrapped up Tuesday evening in Georgia, with the judge ordering the actor to pay $10,690 a month in child support. The exes have a daughter, Soraya. I think we have a video, so let's go.
Tender Petitioner's Exhibit 57, Mr. Gibson's 2018 tax return.
No objection, Your Honor.
57 in. If I recall your testimony correctly, Mr. Gibson, you said 2018 you were financially in, quote, shambles. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So in 2018, when you were financially in shambles, do you know how much you made that year?
I don't.
Well, according to your tax return, you made $2.221 million. It's page 32. Do you want to check my math?
No, sir, I'm asking you because I don't do the CFO thing. Here's a question to you, smart person.
No, hey, that's enough. You go sit down, we're taking a break, lawyer's back now. If you do it again, I'm gonna hold you in contempt. You don't ask any questions. That's not how this works.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe if Tyrese was his own lawyer, he could have probably asked all the questions he wanted to.
I mean, well, he said that it's not. He's not the CEO, CFO. You know, he said that's above his pay grade, and that's why he asked this judge, the smart person, to answer. But anyways, they got this man's business all out there in the street. Let's just hope that he and Samantha can come to an amicable understanding, you know, for their child support and child's future. $10,000 a month is only really $120K a year, so that seems pretty reasonable.
For him. We need to clarify on that one.
Yes, it seems pretty reasonable for someone who makes $2 million a year, or whatever they said he made that year. All right. Bank of America launches 0 down payment mortgages to help minorities buy their first homes. Here's who can apply. To help narrow a home ownership gap among Black and Hispanic Latino communities, Bank of America is launching new 0 down payment, 0 closing cost mortgage products to help people in minority communities buy their first homes. The program, called the Community Affordable Loan Solution, will be available to certain markets, including majority Black and or Hispanic Latino neighborhoods in Charlotte, North Carolina, Dallas, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. The loans are subject to rigorous underwriting and are based on credit guidelines, including one-time bill payments, including rent, utilities, phone, and auto insurance payments. Eligibility is backed on income and home location. No minimum credit score or mortgage assistance is required. Insurance is required. Applicants do not have to be Black or Hispanic Latino to qualify for the loans. I'll read that again. Applicants do not have to be Black or Hispanic Latino to qualify for the loans. Before applying, applicants must complete a home buyer certification course provided by Housing Counseling Partners, approved by Bank of America and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Before applying, applicants must complete a home buyer certification course. I read that, didn't I? Our Community Affordable Loan Solution will help make the dream of sustained home ownership attainable for more Black and Hispanic families, and it is part of our broader commitment to the communities that we serve, AJ Barkley, head of neighborhood and community lending at Bank of America, said in a statement. All right, so what we have here is reverse redlining, in my opinion, because these homes are in so-called minority neighborhoods, and I've even seen some quotes that it's promise zone or opportunity zone neighborhoods, which are historically the Black and brown, if you will, neighborhoods in the communities. For instance, here in Sacramento, one of the opportunity promise zones is Del Paso Heights. Another one is Oak Park. And you don't have to be Black or Hispanic, Black or brown to qualify for the loan. So anybody can get one of these loans as long as they're moving into these disenfranchised neighborhoods. So I see this as possibly a mechanism that will exacerbate gentrification.
Yeah, once again, you have these huge banks, these huge companies promising a lot of fluff, and we just have to really get into the data again. Who is actually getting these loans, who are getting these opportunities, and if they don't have any data to back it up, then it's a bunch of fluff, man.
Right. And also with this new program, they really need to be concerned with making, repairing and making whole the people that were harmed in the first mortgage downturn in 2008, because I'm sure there are still some victims of that out there, like myself. And I think that those, instances need to be resolved before moving on to new crops of homeowners. They need to make the people whole that they harmed in the first place.
Yep. Well, speaking of harms, UN committee calls on U.S. to offer reparations to descendants of enslaved people. A United Nations committee is calling on the U.S. to begin the process of attempting to give reparations to descendants of enslaved people as part of a larger need to provide redress for legacies of the past. The committee is concerned that the lingering legacies of colonialism and slavery continue to fuel racism and racial discrimination in the U.S., undermining the full enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all individuals and communities. The Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination wrote in a report released on Tuesday. The body, part of the UN's Human Rights Office, monitors the progress made by member states in enforcing the UN's Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, CERD, which the U.S. joined in 1994 with various reservations and caveats. I'm sure they did. The Tuesday report highlighted the ways the U.S. continues to perpetuate racial inequality through police violence, gun violence, and environmental racism, and recommended a reparations commission as a key strategy to begin the justice process. The UN body praised state-level efforts at racial healing in America, such as Maryland's Lynching Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the first such body of its kind in the U.S., as well as California's ongoing study of reparations for descendants of enslaved people.
Shout out California and Maryland for leading the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with everything. I'm nodding my head as you're reading. Yeah, that's why we still have this unchecked white supremacy, because the harms have not been addressed, let alone redressed. So I really do believe that that is the first step towards healing, is this reparations repair.
Facts. Well, I think that's in the news.
I think that's it.
All right, till next time.
In the news.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us.
This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.